no matter what the mind is doing, no matter how locked into unresolved past, what it comes down to, in many ways, is this moment, is how we are in this moment. This is why I talk about presence so much, because it's an underrated quality or way of being that we have. It's highly underrated because we don't really understand it. And yet the paradox of that is that we are in it because we're in the moment all the time, except our minds are telling us something different. So we're constantly living in this sort of dual world of presence, meaning that the whole of us is actually here now, in this moment. Body, emotion, mind, thought, whatever is right here, right now, as this conversation is going on, as you're listening to these words. And yet the mind is reflective in so many ways, and so the mind is quite capable of, even while we're here now, being there then, or up ahead when, in the future sometime. So it's sort of, the mind is the only problem. Thought is the only problem. Distraction is the only problem. Habitual thinking about past, future, and what am I going to do now, which is not present, is what preoccupies the human being, not being here now. Because actually, when you're here now and you're aware of being here now, i.e. being here now consciously, then something starts to open up. Almost a door starts to open up. Time itself almost opens up. There's a great spaciousness within us and within our experience that opens up. Seeing starts to become clearer. Feeling starts to become clearer. Awareness opens and broadens out and deepens, simply because we're acknowledging with awareness that we're here now. And to be able to do that is an ongoing relationship, is an ongoing journey. And it seems as though it's not easy, because we're so habituated, so conditioned to be there then, or up there in the future somewhere, anywhere but this. Because the mind, doesn't really have anything to do with being here now. Because as soon as thought takes place, it's secondary. Even if it's thinking about here now, it's still secondary. It's not a direct felt sense. It's not a direct being here. Because actually, the ultimate of just being here now is silence. The silence of being here now, which is the great unknown, the great openness, the great awareness, the great mystery, the vast universe. Almost the death of the mind, at least for this moment. So even thinking doesn't really have a place in here now. Not really. So at a certain point, thinking can arise from the deepest, from the here now, from being in this presence. But one has to be very, very sensitive to what's rising up from the silence, because the silence is whole, complete unto itself. So whatever arises from that whole, complete unto itself, has to be something that doesn't take away from that, doesn't take away from the union, doesn't take away from the vastness or the totality. It's not a distraction from it, it's not a moving away from it. It's actually an inherent part of it, if that's possible to say. It's like it is rather like the tender wave that rises from the depth of the ocean, but in a way that speaks of the presence of the totality of us. And we're not trained for this. We're not taught this. So we have to find this for ourselves. It's the great beauty of Zen. It's the great beauty of some of the meditation traditions. But I don't mean the meditation traditions that are this kind of rigid, have this rigidity to them. Sometimes maybe we need that discipline. There's nothing wrong with discipline on the spiritual path. It gets a bad rap because we're all, way cool now, and we don't want to be, we're sort of in a state of rebellion against spirituality that has any idea of a sort of discipline or, anything rigorous. We don't want to know. We want it to be free, man. We want it to be, just kind of arrive without us really having to do very much, as I talked about on a previous video. But it doesn't really work like that. So the kind of inner discipline is useful. Not when it comes from the rigid mind, but when it rises up from the deeper being. Because if we haven't got any training for it, and we haven't got any actual knowledge of it, there's no book that prepares us for it, then we have to go on the path of discovering it for ourselves. And sometimes that means going to, meditation retreats or vipassanas, or going to India to find some meditation practice. And this is all, almost necessary, maybe. Not really, but it can be, if you're drawn that way, of course. There's no right or wrong way. There's no, nobody's holding the dogmatic flag here saying, oh, it's good, this is the path. I don't care about that sort of thing. Every path is the path. Your life is the path that you're on, but you have to find out what that means. And so this is the call to, after a lot of practice and a lot of discipline, then there's actually a sort of a moment or a time or an experience where there's just the silence of being, which is presence. Silent presence of beingness. Mind is still. Emotion is calm. Nothing going on. No thinking, no reflection of it, no thinking about it. Mind is not doing anything. Body is doing its autonomic functions. But really, it's empty. The whole thing is empty. And there's a deep peace in that. There's a deep peace that it's worth pursuing in that. because it does something. It changes something about us. It deepens something about us. It's like, boom, you know, it's, nothing is unresolved. Nothing is unresolved. Yeah, everything is resolved. Everything is resolved in this. Of course, life still takes place, but we're not talking about that because that moves away. Just trying to invite you into a deeper intimacy with this very moment, without getting into the semantics or the theory or the philosophy or the description of it. Just this, just this, just this. Because there's something both peaceful and healing. Maybe it's uncomfortable, it doesn't really matter. You know, it does happen with people that when we start to get really still, you know, another layer of stuff rises up, another layer of discomfort may rise up for us to welcome it, or to meet it and accept it at least. But we have to find that out for ourselves by being willing to just be in this silent unknown as best we can. No force. No force. If it's forced, it's false. But if it's willinged, through willingness, just a gentle, then just maybe the window opens, the window of possibility, the deep door opens into the vastness of eternity, which we are a manifestation of. So really, through this, opening the door to the truth of us that has no name, has no description, there's no nouns, verbs, adjectives, just the mystery of the vast, eternal beingness. Just the flavour of that ignites something beautiful within us. Bless you.